Welcome everyone to 11/11 of 2018. It's an amazing, amazing window of opportunity for all of us. So I'm Samara. I've been channeling Mother Mary for about 21 years now. Long story, big journey, lots of has happened, but basically it's always about love. And so in just a moment, I'm gonna bring her through and let her share her message of love. And this is going to be recorded so that other people who couldn't attend today can listen as well. But meanwhile, just so you know, there's people from all across the country joining in right now on Zoom, sharing their love and their energy and also their wishes for this world. So let me just take a moment. Well, all right, take out your notebooks. Come on, come on. Samara was talking about being a school teacher. Come on. Or your little recorders or whatever you've got. Because I want to tell you something that is so important. Because let me ask you this. How many of you want to make as much of a difference as you can in the world today? Raise your hand. All right. How many of you are a little bit afraid of the way the world's going? So I'm here today to offer you really the most potent understanding about how to be both a human being and a spiritual being in a world that is going through a new birth. So I want you to just imagine for a moment that all of you are gathered in a lovely temple of light where a new child is about to be born. And any of you that have ever attended anyone's childbirth, it can be a little messy, it can be a little noisy, and it can be rather even frantic at times. And so I want you to just imagine that that is part of the idea that you can hold right now, that you are one of the midwives birthing a new understanding here on the earth, a new way of being, a new, in a way, a new humanity. And so what does it take to be a midwife? You have to remember to breathe and help the birther breathe, right? And so in a world that is expressing so much anger and so much reaction right away, one of the things you can do for yourself and those around you is just take a breath, take a breath, take a breath before you respond. If someone has done something that you immediately want to get angry about or sad about or anything, realize I'm in this birthing chamber and the person who just did whatever they did that is making you angry or sad is in the midst of their own torment. And so their statement or their action is coming out of a sense of being out of control. Because again, anyone who's ever been through a birth, you are not any longer in control. The child will control what is happening, along with whatever medical people you might have with you. And so you're in a birthing chamber. And any of you that have been involved in birthing in the more recent times, you've watched the use of music, you've watched the use of quiet, you've watched the use of family around, you've watched the use of taking the hand of the person who's birthing and holding it and squeezing it and loving them. And so just imagine, if you will, that all of this current turmoil and chaos that you're seeing in the world is part of a new birth, and you are one of the midwives. And it could be a boy too, you could be a mid-husband as opposed to a midwife. And so what's happening is there's a great disparity between the birth and what you would like to see as your vision of the world, because the birth has not yet fully occurred. And so this disparity results in anxiety. So there's a disparity between feeling peaceful and what you see in the world. There's a disparity between loving the beauty of nature and what you see in the world. There's a disparity between sometimes what you'd like to have financially and what you're experiencing. There's a disparity between sometimes your own health, what you'd like to be experiencing and what you're experiencing. So this birth is taking place on multiple levels, because when there is a disparity, the greater force will win. Take that in for just a moment. When there's a disparity, the greater force will win. And the greatest force of all is love. But when there is a disparity, more often than not, rather than responding from your spiritual being with love and understanding and compassion and harmony, many times this ricochet effect that you're seeing out there is because rather than responding as a spiritual being, people are responding as a human being, threatened by what is occurring. And when people feel threatened, they react not with kindness, not with love, not with compassion, but with some kind of fear. It's part of the evolution of humanity. And fear was what kept you alive when you were a cave person. Fear is what kept you alive when there were marauders coming to steal your horses at your village or something like that. And so the greatest test right now is to understand this disparity between what you all know as love, between what you all know as compassion and harmony and how you would love everyone to be treating each other, and what is currently occurring. That disparity must now be met with even more love. Because if you, my beautiful ones, my beautiful light workers, my beautiful heart-centered people, if you go into fear, this new birth is going to be very, very messy. And what we would like to see is that you breathing in and breathing out, you seeing the fires being quelled, both the physical fires and the emotional fires. And how do you do that specifically? So first of all, it begins within, because you cannot give what you're not experiencing. And so whatever practices allow you to feel peaceful, allow you to feel harmonious, allow you to feel generous and compassionate. Walk in nature, play music, play with your dog or cat, help a child, make a meal for someone who is living alone and needs companionship. You see, there's all kinds of disparity, but the greatest disparity right now is a sense of separation from the truth of who you are. And so everyone is sort of at odds, not everyone, but many people are at odds with who am I and what am I doing here? How do I respond to a mass shooting? And there's not an easy answer to that, but the widest lens that you can look at is to look at what would lead someone to do that. It would have to be a sense of desperation. And so desperation is one of those wildfire emotions, like the wildfires that you're seeing. If someone is desperate, they can easily become a murderer, a robber, a shooter, a stealer, right? Because of the desperation. So how do we calm and minimize desperation? Well, step one, as I said, is for you, each of you, to care for yourself in such a way that you feel full of love and compassion. So whatever that is, do that, or those things, right? Then open your eyes and look around. And you really just have to ask a couple of questions. What are the resources and gifts that I have that I could offer into a certain disparity? So if there is a disparity of compassion, you can offer compassion. If there is a disparity of food, you can offer food. But again, so much of this revolves around the loneliness and the feeling that a person feels that they don't matter. And then they look out there and they look and they think, everyone at that bar was having a good time. How can they have a good time when I'm not? Again, not a conscious thought, not really even a conscious process, but an act of desperation that resulted in his own demise. So when you come back to that and you think, okay, who are the lonely people in the world right now that I could touch and reach? And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So you don't have to necessarily directly address the shooter, the murderer, the stealer. You can send them love, you can send them Reiki or energy, you can pray for them, whatever feels right to you. But to minimize the huge disparity in the world right now is to offer into that disparity your generosity of compassion, your generosity of food, your generosity of laughter, your generosity of love in whatever form that would take. And to begin to realize the more that you do that, the birth of the new earth, one of compassion and humanity and more than enough and love, can occur without such difficult birth pain of what you're seeing right now. Because when someone acts in such a horrific way, it comes from this desperation that their energy matters in the world. And they choose an act that we hope no one ever chooses again. And so the next part is, let's say, Lois has such a lovely group there. Hello, everyone. Let's say that you all decide once a month, you're going to take, I don't know, I'll just pick something. You all do whatever feels good to you, but you're going to take a beautiful meal over to someone that's maybe a shut-in and maybe can't get out too easily. And at least two of you are going to go together. And you're going to bring the meal so they know you're coming. And you're going to sit there with them for, 20 minutes or half an hour and ask them about their life. Ask them to tell the stories of when they were young, or about their children or grandchildren, or anything about themselves. And sit there and listen. That their loneliness can be diminished by your kindness. And so what you've done is you've acted as my son always did. Love everyone, but especially those that have been forgotten, denied, and left out of the love basket that so many get to have in their lives. And so you begin, and I know many of you already do things like this, especially in Sun Lakes, which is such a close-knit community. But what happens then is you begin to create an environment seeded, S-E-E-D-E-D, with all of these wonderful acts of love that then get another person thinking, and maybe even that person you brought the meal to thinks, well, you know what? I know how to make cookies. Let me call you back and say, you know what? Can I make some cookies? And the next time you're out delivering meals, can I have you stop by and get the cookies and make sure everyone gets a cookie? I don't know. Because it's not only about visiting them and letting them know that they still matter, but also encouraging, to whatever extent is feasible, for them to give their love back into the world. And this new humanity is all about generosity and compassion and not letting people feel left out and alone to the extent that they will then do desperate acts. So that's something that we see can happen quite easily. And when you begin to do that, there is another benefit. There's lots of benefits that happen, because rather than being part of this growing sense of disparity, of not being enough, not mattering, being lonely, being sad, being angry, etc., etc., of course you become part of the whole other group that is washing that away and saying, no, you do matter and you can do something, and here's some things that we're doing, and you move into that space. The other interesting thing that happens, because it's a law of the universe, what you are giving, you will now receive. How? I don't know, it doesn't matter. But your generosity becomes a magnetic field. So people want to naturally be generous to you. And perhaps they'll bring you cookies, perhaps they'll bring you hugs, perhaps they'll invite you to sit in their living room and have a lovely afternoon. And so begin to realize the earth is birthing a new kind of humanity. And it's messy and it's difficult. And there are not yet enough midwives and mid-husbands participating in such a way that those who feel lonely and isolated and left out can now begin to gather in some way or connect in some way, so that instead of being even more isolated, even more afraid, even more desperate, they realize, I am a part of humanity. One of the examples that I want you to just look at, it's quite interesting, is this caravan of migrants that's coming up from the Americas, makes it into Mexico, and the Mexican people bring out pots of food, clothing, blankets, water. And these are not people that necessarily have lots and lots themselves, but they know what it's like to be desperate in many cases, and they want to alleviate, and they want to show their generosity and their love. And really, that's the generosity that we all can be showing right now. Now, are there some people that are in that caravan that want to do evil and harm and this and that? Perhaps. But how much less would that occur had they been met along the way with generosity? If you are fleeing for your life with your children, and someone offers you water and a blanket, do you want to harm them? I don't think so. And so in that spirit of generosity, in that spirit of midwifery, if you will, look around your world, your community, your family, and just ask, what do I have the resources to offer into whichever disparity is calling to you? A disparity in loneliness, a disparity in the lack of food, a disparity in the lack of opportunity for jobs. There's no lack of disparity. And so we don't want to overwhelm you, but we want to just invite you to look around and think, you know, if nothing else, I can bake cookies and take them to some of my neighbors and say, how are you? I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. Oh, you're all alone. You know what? Why don't you come by? We're having an open house. This is the new test for all of you. How generous can you be But remember, I'm going to take it back to what I said at the beginning. Fill yourself first. I do not want you to do this from a sense of obligation or for a sense of lack, and certainly not from exhaustion. So first you have to give yourself whatever feeds you, whatever fuels you, whatever wakes you up and makes you happy. And then from that place of fullness, to look around and think, you know, there's a lot of lonely people out there. Maybe I'll bake cookies. Maybe I'll bring blankets. Maybe I'll go down to the local food bank and volunteer. Maybe I will, you know, there's so many opportunities. It doesn't, there's no shortage there. So you fill yourself first, and then you just ask, what is the greatest disparity that is within my reach? Within my reach, something where I can make a physical, emotional, or mental difference. One of the things that's been remarkable about using Zoom is that it's free and you can reach anyone, anywhere across the world. And so perhaps there are some people in your life that you've lost touch with. One other act of generosity on your part is to look them up and create a little Zoom time and check in on them and see how they're doing. Because all of you can remember, I think, a time when you felt lonely and maybe like you didn't matter. And perhaps there was someone who reached out a hand and said, oh, I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I know you. And I'm with you. That energy creates a resonance and a reciprocity 99.9% of the time that allows that other person who's receiving your generosity or your compassion or your hello call or whatever to not feel they have to barricade themselves against life, and that maybe they have something to offer again too. Because I can tell you right now, whatever your age, wherever you live, you have gifts to share and time to share it. And so today, I just want you to think about those several concepts. The concept of disparity leading to desperation, leading to acts of violence and warfare and all of that. Second, how do I fill myself so I'm not fearful, so I'm full of my own heart and light and compassion, and I'm going to make sure I've eaten and put it all in my own life. And then third, what can I do? Where is there a disparity that I have an abundance that I can put back in there? And again, a simple conversation, a simple meal, cookies, a blanket, it matters. The loneliness in the world right now is staggering. Staggering. And it's causing these eruptions, both the eruptions of violence, the eruptions in the weather, the eruptions in people's lives with illness or various other things. And it's like erosion. It doesn't happen overnight. These eruptions take a while to build. And so in order to quell all of that fearful energy, you're putting compassion and love and laughter and joy back in, allows for the energy to calm itself, so there will not be these continuing eruptions that are fueled by anger, and most of all by a sense of loneliness and separation. So I know I've talked for a while now, about 20 minutes or so, but I want you to just take a moment, a tender moment, all of us together, whether you're on the call now or later, and envision the new birth of what we do want to see. So in your hearts and in your minds, just imagine, as John Lennon sang, a world of prosperity, a world of plenty, a world of peace, a world in which power is used to empower, not disempower, a world in which there is opportunity for everyone to create a better life, a world in which our elders are revered for their knowledge and our children are laughing with the joy of being able to play in their innocence. A world that is being born of friendship and compassion and love and hugs. Put your energy into that world, for that is the world we all need to see, and that is the world that you can help to birth. I love you all so much. Many blessings on 11/11/11. Let's birth this new earth together. Namaste. 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 So we will end the recording. Can you do that?